Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe, and I'm very excited today to welcome Will Hyler to the podcast to talk about a big one, the feature debut of Steven Spielberg. Yes, we are talking about Duel today, which made its premiere on television on November 13th, 1971, 50 years ago. How are we doing, Will?
Watch out, Brian. I'm coming through with some hot takes on this cool movie. Get ready to discuss it. Here we go.
All right. So those of you who are only listening, you have no idea what I'm looking at right now. Will made this graphic. He is literally like Dennis Weaver in the movie driving the car. Will is
driving over here to the podcast.
Is such a gifted graphic artist. And we got the title Duel on the left side. On the right, it says the most bizarre murder weapon ever used, which I guess was like the big tagline for the movie back in 71. Yeah. And Will is going very fast. I don't see the truck behind you, Will. Is it coming? Is it?
I'm safe for the moment. I think everything. Whoa, watch out.
Oh my God, there it is.
It's
okay.
For me.
Okay, listeners, the truck is right behind him. Yeah, no, that's so fantastic, Will. That's so much fun. So we had Will on once before. I don't want to give it away too early, Will. I would say a lesser film, The Barefoot Executive in March.
Enough. Yeah, fair description. Yeah.
I don't know your feelings about Duel yet, but I think we could probably agree that Barefoot Executive is a lesser movie. And yes, we talked about that in March and the career of Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell will return for me on this episode, which we'll find out later. But of course, to start with here, we're talking about Duel from 1971. Really important film in the career of Steven Spielberg. Obviously, Jaws is like the movie we all think of as like his breakthrough early film. This was 4 years before that. This is the movie that he says on the DVD, this movie led to him getting the Sugarland Express in 74, and that movie led to Jaws. So Duel played a big role in his early career, as we'll talk about. So, usually now's the time where I give a little plot summary of the movie. Sometimes it's as long as 7-8 sentences. I mean, I think most of you, even if you've never seen this movie, or if you're like vaguely aware of Duel, you should know what this is about. Basically, it's an everyman. His name in the movie is Man.
Yes.
Yes. His name is David Mann.
Yes.
Played by Dennis Weaver.
I don't know if this is if I'm reading too far into it, but David and Goliath.
Okay.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Pretty
Duel.
Straightforward. I mean, I had no idea what this movie was about. You said Duel. You said Steven Spielberg. That's the only way I found it.
You had never seen this before?
No, never seen it.
I thought you had. Okay.
It was a perfect opportunity. Yeah. So I got into it. Total blank slate. Didn't watch a trailer or anything for it. Just went right for it. And it is. Like just exactly what like your film professor would want out of your like pitch. It's like, what is it? Come on, kid, give it to me. And you just say like, big car trying to squish a little car, right? And
yep.
And they just race away. Like they get into various. I mean, the thing is, he's in the backwoods of California, right? Which is kind of cool. I remember. I mean, we lived together out in LA. That was familiar territory. We used to drive up there to do different things, and so it was kind of a nice little nostalgic road trip part of the movie when it starts off. But it doesn't get more complicated than that. We're on the backwoods back in the 70s. No cell phones, no communication. They really cut him off from anything else, and he goes out there and has to go man to man, machine to machine, and survive one long stretch of unending road that has no forks, has no places to hide.
Is that your number one question, Will, of like, why can't he find an alternate route?
Well, yes, honestly, I mean, there's the movie asks you to ask those questions because there's nothing else to do. Where it's like, there's a car, you got to get away from a bigger car. What would you do? And you spend, Brian, I don't know if you've seen this meme online. It's a GIF that goes that I believe is from an episode of Mythbusters, where they take this truck and drive it into a pylon just to see how strong the pylon is. Like it's like a cement or metal pylon that comes out of the concrete, and this truck just barrels down on it. And they have, as all reality television shows do, 97 angles. And when they cut this, they cut. And some wise person realized that they're just repeating the same small stretch of road fairly just to build tension, right? Well, that effect was in full force here because so much of the movie, maybe 70% of the movie, was cars driving endlessly. And are they going to crash? Nope, they're actually pretty far away, but actually they're really close. And actually they're a little far away. And so it's like this tension tease the entire movie because that's the whole game. Is he going to squish him or not? That was the whole movie.
That's the whole movie. So yeah, this guy, he has a very brief phone call with his wife. There's an appointment he has to make, like he's trying to get to that day, right? Yeah. There's like a little bit of motivation. It's not just some guy just out for a drive. And
he ain't lollygagging, right? He's out for business.
He has
a businessman, serious business, city boy coming out into the country. Yeah.
No, and all he does, he's driving along. There's this truck, and it's going very slow. So he goes around the truck, and that's what starts it. That's it. He doesn't flip the guy off or do or shake his head. He just
has the audacity to pass a truck on the road, and this truck, it's a polluting, slow, like monster of a vehicle. He has every right to pass this truck. It makes pure sense.
Any human being would pass this guy.
Right. Sets him off. The truck didn't like it. Of course, we don't get to see the person in the truck. It's a faceless monster. It's just mad at him for having done this. Does he though? They do that, like you said, an initial pass that he's like, I'm going to get around this flammable truck, the big smog, the rolling coal. It's really bad. He gets around him, and then the guy passes him again. It escalates really fast from there. Does he like, I know he's in the car yelling, sort of going like, get out of the way, I'm so frustrated, but does he gesture? Did I miss anything like that would lend cause to such a escalation?
Well, there's a little bit of escalation. It shows that there's going to be some road rage, but I feel like when he first stops to get gas after the truck has passed him once, I'm trying to remember. I think like he passes the truck passes him, and then he passes the truck again, right? And then he stops for gas, and he's just kind of annoyed at that point. And he kind of we watch him watch the truck pull up, and he's looking at the guy's boots. I don't think he's afraid for his life yet. He's just kind of like, well, this guy's kind of out of it, and hope I don't have to deal with him again today.
Well, you say that the gas station, he stops at the gas station, and the trucker is, I think, a little mad that he didn't get served immediately, right? He blows the horn, like he wants service pretty prompt. But look, I don't think, let me back up here for a second, Brian, because when I got into this movie, the first 5-10 minutes, I realized I'm in for a very sparse ride. Like there's not much going on in this movie. There's not a lot of characters. There's not a lot of plot going on. So you're kind of just sitting there meditating on these driving shots. And when they throw you something, you're tuned in, you're listening, you're going, is this a clue? Is this something that's like coming up later? There's this very strange census skit going on the radio as he's driving in the opening credits that goes on and on about some man feeling emasculated. And then later when he stops, I mean, I don't mean later, like 10 minutes in, like in the first act, when he stops at that gas station, he gets on the phone with his wife, and his wife is like, you didn't stick up for me and stuff. Like there are strong details here, not because they in themselves are verbose or big or whatever, so much as just there's no other details. You know what I mean? It's like these small little things are planted in there so intentionally, and you can't help but sit there and go like, all right, are we trying to get deep here? You know what I mean? I realize that we're just trying to kill each other, but like, are we also trying to make some suggestions here?
No. So here's the deal. Spielberg saw this as an exercise in suspense, and it was his vehicle in a way to like showcase what he can do with the camera, with editing, and create a work of suspense. He took this movie internationally, I believe it was in 1972, and all the foreign critics and audiences thought, he was talking about class and all of these thematic issues. And Spielberg was like, okay, yeah, no, I was just creating a work of suspense here.
That's exactly. Yes. That was infuriating to me because when I watched this movie, I was like, okay, like I thought that they were just being heavy-handed, and I thought, well, it's the 70s, it's like earlier cinema. I mean, they're playing with this stuff. It's also, I recognize, for television, right? So it's not necessarily supposed to be high art necessarily. And then when I did that reading too and saw that people were like, hey, I picked up on the various, very obvious clues that you dropped. And he was like, what clues? No, I was saying nothing except for driving fun. Big bad machine crush little man. Like, it was so weird to me, the amount of pushback from him, and I think even the producer or somebody else involved in it on a higher level is kind of like, you're reading it all wrong. There's nothing there to read. It's just, city man versus country man, and calloused hands versus soft hands, and you're just like, then why do we have that shot through the washing machine door? Were you just looking for a cool angle? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I put a question mark there too. Why do we watch that lady in like the foreground gathering her laundry? Now, do you know, Will, like, so the movie that premiered on television in November of 71 was 74 minutes long.
Right.
And then to take it internationally and make it a feature theatrical film, he had to add 16 more minutes.
Right.
So do you know what the added scenes are in the movie?
Well, I read that it was the one with his wife, right?
The scene with his wife was against Spielberg's wishes. He did not want to shoot it. He didn't want that in the movie. He wanted the lead character to not have any backstory, and wanted it to just be a man driving.
I would have been fine with that. Like, I don't know that it added anything, right? It made me sort of go like,
it doesn't bother me that much. What bothers me is we really see the whole movie from his point of view. And it's like one of the very few times where we cut to the wife at home.
Yes, that's right.
Away from him.
Yeah.
And I don't like that because it kind of it goes away from the point of view in the movie.
Yeah, good point. What else? Hit me with the other ones. How many other scenes?
So the opening shot over the credits of the car leaving the driveway. I mean, it's kind of obvious, right?
Of course.
I don't know what shot. I would love to see like the 74-minute cut. I would be really interested in that. I couldn't find it online. Like,
well, listen,
what was the opening shot of the 74-minute movie? I don't know.
I would like to see a 20-minute movie because that would be tight, right? That would be fun. That would be all the best parts.
If you step foot in front of Spielberg, you'd say, the one thing about Duel that I think you could have thought more about, like, what if it had been like 20 minutes?
I am not a worshiper of celebrities. The guy was 26 when he made this movie.
26. Yeah. Well, was he born in 46? So I think he might have even been younger. Does it say online 26?
That was the number I read. I didn't do the math. Okay, but I think he was young. Stand a little critique. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because his first thing he ever did, like once he signed. Have you heard his story, Will? Like at the beginning, like he was in college and he signed a 7-year contract with Universal.
Yeah.
Like that didn't happen to us.
back in the day, man. Yeah.
He was not like, people did not like him because he was very young and he had acne, and they were like, what is this kid doing on the Universal backlot? And the first assignment he got was a night gallery episode starring Joan Crawford. And I believe he was like 21 or 22 when he filmed that for like a much older, like right at the end of her career, Joan Crawford. And he talked about like how the crew members on that episode, they were all 50 and up, and they treated him like garbage. They were like, who is this kid? Like thinking he's the director here. Yeah. And he did not work for like 18 months. And then but he was on contract. So I guess he could get paid.
Right.
While developing scripts. That would have been nice too. We didn't get that experience. No. But then he might have done one other thing, but he did an episode of Columbo. Yes. And that's the episode he showed to the higher ups who were making the decision, who do we want to direct Duel? So he had directed an episode of Columbo. Yeah. His assistant had found Richard Matheson's story in Playboy, of all places. His assistant read Playboy for the fiction.
Yeah.
And said, I think this one might be up your alley. And Spielberg read the story and loved it, and then found out that Richard Matheson had already scripted like a TV movie of the week, and they were looking for a director. It was just like a matter of really good timing. And he had that episode, he was able to go in and pitch his ideas, and they went with him. But like the making of this movie, Will, he shot it in 12 days. And then when he finished shooting it, he had 3 weeks before the air date.
Yeah.
Like when it was airing.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to admit, yes, this is not his strongest work by any means, but for like a young director, his first feature, to do this movie in 12 days and then have 3 weeks to get it ready for air, that's pretty pretty remarkable what he was able to do here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, like you consider constraints and reality's environment and all that kind of stuff. And it's a good piece of work. I don't criticize the slim concept in and of itself so much as like the stretching of it, and I think the concept itself is very solid. And I think that's why a film professor or anybody else would sort of be like, you got a gold nugget right there. It's like, well, probably why they were attracted to it. It's like a really clean, simple premise, and it's good for the TV format as well with that monster of the week. Honestly, I was thinking at times about the Twilight episode. What is it? Terror 20,000 feet.
The Twilight Zone, also by Matheson, the one in the plane with William Shatner.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Nightmare at 20,000 feet, I believe is the title.
There you go. Yeah, the same easy concept. You know what I mean? Like man versus thing. He sees a thing, he tries to escape the thing, whatever. And it's like this one honestly doesn't have the same kind of twist, but it's still some slim premise. And I think that's the enduring aspect of it, right? Is people don't have to get like, well, let me tell you about the character. And it's like, no, just, how you get mad at cars on the road and you want to kill them. Like someone tried it on this guy and it, played out for an hour.
Yeah. Honestly, Will, I mean, Spielberg has made how many films by now? Like 30 to 35, maybe more. This is the one it's one of the few I like to revisit the most because it's such a fun, entertaining watch. Yeah. And you could for me, this one doesn't get old. It's just because it really is a work of suspense and you don't have to get super invested in the characters and it's easier to watch Duel than it is to watch Schindler's List.
And we live in yes, excellent point. We live in an age, Brian, when the Fast and the Furious movies are up to 9 now, right?
Yep. I have not seen the new one. It's up to 9, and they're shooting parts 10 and 11 back to back next year, I believe.
So it's a little bit, we're in a little bit of a situation where we've just been injecting heroin straight into our veins for like 20 years when it comes to like action shots with cars and stuff. And this is like a little puff of weed is in comparison if we're using drug metaphors.
Yeah.
So I tried to watch it with that in mind, and still I found a lot of the shots impressive. The really rattly stuff like really helps a lot. Some of those wide ones felt like GoPros and stuff that you do nowadays. So like a lot of cool stuff like that. It's just that it was then lavishly filled with filler in between those cool shots.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in a perfect world, this should have been like a 45-minute episode of like an hour show where it's 15 minutes of commercial. I think there's enough here to sustain us past a half hour. Yeah, I think like a full hour, which back in the 70s, they didn't have as many commercials. So maybe it would have been like 50, 52 minutes. Mm-hmm. I think the perfect version of this movie is around 50 to 55 minutes. I think 90 minutes is a little bit long, but Spielberg does enough. And there are enough scenes outside of the car that I think are really interesting. And for me, I don't really get super bored in this movie. Did you have moments where you're just like, because some of the chase scenes do kind of, you see like the same shot of the truck coming at the camera for the 4th time. And you're like, I've seen that shot.
I don't know if bored is the right word for it. I mean, I was being analytical and critical throughout all of it. So I was eager to see how long can they make this shot last, so some of it was like exciting to see how weird it would get. Yeah. But I did feel like there was a missed opportunity to create some more atmosphere in the film. I mean, because everything was so slow paced, it seems like you could have done things that were maybe better looking, you know what I mean? Like, especially during like the diner scene, like I'm sure they had limitations on environment and lighting and all the different things that they had to work with. But still, you see that classic Spielberg camera move, right? Where he does that sort of 3/4 pan around that you see in like Jurassic Park and different things like that, where he's like at the gas station, I think is where I noticed the first one is it's looking through the windshield. And then it like dollies over and angles back in on the side for your second shot all in one.
Oh yeah, he's doing stuff with the camera here that he would do much later in bigger movies for sure.
Yeah, and I would have enjoyed seeing more experimentation with that, because a lot of it was just set it on sticks, aiming at that, and we'll get some footage. Because there was a lot of like psychological aspects of it in the diner. I appreciated like so for listeners who haven't seen it, he stops at a diner after just going 90 miles an hour in a car that was designed to go 40 max or whatever, and he like slams into a wall, and the guy just takes off, I guess, satisfied at his kill. Yeah. Right. So the guy gets out in a daze. A couple of old locals just stare him down. We get plenty of shots of old locals for absolutely no reason. They never come up later on. And then he heads into a diner, and I guess the truck returns and he doesn't see, but the guy in the truck has joined him in the diner, and there's several, these trucker looking guys in there, and he's trying to decide which one of the guys trying to kill me. And I thought Spielberg did a really good job of faking us out. There's a couple of times where I was like, it's that guy, but then it wasn't. So that was skillful. That was good. But it just wasn't all that much to look at. It just kind of felt like they had one or two lights. They had, 20 minutes to get all these shots, and they were just rushing through it kind of thing.
So in the diner scene itself, in terms of what he does with the camera, you felt it was like a little bit flat, like he could have done, especially once he's like actually seated at that table, like maybe he could have had a little bit more style in that scene.
Brian, I don't know if you noticed this, but he used every focal length in this movie. I mean, he was like, get me all of the Panavision lenses, get them all down here. We're going to use every one of them.
Yeah.
And the times that was successful is like when he, the long shots were good on the road and stuff. There was some utility in that. The ones that were creative and fun is like when he was doing those jump cuts, like when he got out of the car and was actually running at the truck to try and like say, get out of your truck, come at me.
That's like, I love that part when he's just he's like walking towards him. He's like, fight. Like,
and they do, and Spielberg does a jump cut, like a full-on, straight-on, no angle change jump cut, and changes the lens, right? So he doesn't just push the camera in; he actually changes it so that you get like a more distorted lens. So he goes a wider lens as he moves in. So the whole picture, rather than just scaling up, also gets that fisheye bow a little bit difference between focal lengths. So he was considering that stuff, and I enjoyed the times that was successful, but there were times when it was just like, okay, we're going to go 100 yards out there and shoot on the 200 mil, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to shoot on the 50, and then we're going to run over there and just kind of felt like we were like and I couldn't figure out what the utility of that was.
I mean, it's tricky because maybe I do have some bias in my love for this movie and knowing the backstory and how they had only a few days to shoot it. And if Spielberg, I mean, they said to Spielberg, if you do not stay on track every day, we have to take this production into the studio, and you're going to film with like, the
backdrop thing,
the projector screen or whatever behind you, rear screen projection. And that's what they wanted to do. Spielberg said, I can't do it like that. It'll look fake. It'll look stupid. We have to go outside. And they said, well, you got 10 days. Originally, he had 10, and then he got it to 12. And they said, well, if you come in, if you're taking too much time on shots, you have to come back to the studio. So I want, and Spielberg even talks about it on the DVD. He said, if I made this movie now, I would not be able to do it in 12 days. Like I think he would shoot it in a way now that would be much richer. He'd probably have a lot more thematic ideas going on. And
that's right.
So there is like if you, like, as you did, which is cool. Like you turned this on, you didn't really know much about like how it was made or you're just watching it like, oh, an early Spielberg effort. Let's see what's going on here. Where from the beginning, I mean, I feel like even before I saw it for the first time, I had like known a lot of this detail about how it was made and how it was so rushed and he had no time. So I look at it and we're both, both been filmmakers, and I kind of look at it in that regard. I mean, I don't know if someone who's not really interested in film that much were to just watch this, they might. I think a lot of people would watch it and at the 40-minute mark be like, all right, let's get to
that's right.
There is that. I see that. As such a huge fan of Spielberg's work, I see a lot of things here, especially with the camera and some other things that he would explore later in the bigger stuff. So I kind of love it on that level. If he had gone on to never make anything else, I don't know if we would be talking about Duel, but this movie was a big deal. It, like, TV movies of the week were never this good, Will. In 71. Well, like I haven't talked about any on the podcast yet. I've looked at 2 or 3 that came out in 71, and they are deadly, Will. Like they are all like camera locked on sticks. Like people talking back and forth. Like the frame is, really blah and nothing. So there is that too of like, it was a TV movie. You know, I mean, this wasn't like a big theatrical movie that came out, at the end of 71 in theaters all around the country either. So I feel like knowing a lot of that helps kind of your appreciation of what he was able to do here. But
no, totally. And attitudes too towards pacing were different then as well. I'm thinking about like Herbie the Love Bug and stuff. I watched that recently with my son. And aside from the humor aspect of it being incredibly dated, but the racing parts of it I had to imagine at times it's just like, well, people didn't get to see cars moving this fast that often or something, because they would just, stick the camera on it and be like, it's moving. People are going to stay trained on it, and I imagine that would have got more for this film. People would have been aboard longer than someone like you and I, who's just like, where's the explosion? We haven't seen the flip yet.
If you've seen like all the Fast and Furious movies and you watch Duel, you're like, this is moving way too slow. And if you're not used to movies of the early 70s, that kind of slower pace, that the way Spielberg really, like, it'll just be a chase and it'll go on for like 10 minutes. Like Dennis Weaver, eyes big, going, ah. And you're like, at that last part where he's like trying to get up that last hill, and it goes on and on and on. And there's no filmmaker in the world, I mean, maybe a couple who would stretch it out quite like that today. But you have to think about like how times have changed in 50 years too, and how we react to. I mean, this is probably the most fast-paced movie I've like looked at for the podcast.
Right.
Most of the films I look at from 70, 71 are very slow, and I have to just kind of like relax and say, okay, I'm in this for the long haul. There's not a whole lot of movies either that are just like a brisk 85, 90 minutes. A lot of them are longer too. But a couple other things I forgot to mention about the filming of this movie. He talked about on the DVD. He said to make the 12 days, a lot of the scenes where the chase is happening, he used as many as 5 cameras, and he would have a camera here, a camera there, camera pointed this way, and they would do like a mile, and they would drive, and then they'd stop, and then they turn the vehicles around to go back the mile. And because like the other side looked different enough, he would then film the other way. And so when they got into the editing room, they could figure out like, because I mean there's so many angles in this movie. You're never like, wait, are they on the wrong side of the, like, you never think that. It always looks pretty natural. And then he had 5 editors working on the movie for those 3 weeks. He said he had a bike and he would bike from one editing bay to the next, and every editor had a section or something of the movie to work on to get it done for November 13th. So I'm like, so he shot this like a month and a half before it aired. That's pretty fast, right? This is not a movie he made in like the spring of 71 and then it dropped later in the year. No, he was like shooting this in September, October, which is pretty nice. And then also I mentioned that opening scene is new for the 90-minute cut, as well as the scene where he's talking to his wife, which Spielberg did not want in the movie. You think he had enough power? You think later he could have just cut it? I mean, the movie could be 86 minutes. It doesn't really, like, he could have done a George Lucas.
Yes.
THX 1138. We're gonna go in just a little bit. But what else? The other 2 big parts that are new is the school bus scene. That is not in the 74-minute cut.
Okay. All right.
And then the directly next scene with the train where he's getting the truck is shoving his car up to the train. That is also new. He shot that later.
Perfect sense. I mean, because each time you see these, you think to yourself, why? Like, why am I here? Why is this happening? Like, it doesn't add to the story. It just delays the story. The only story is them getting progressively closer and closer. And you expect plotting, like on behalf of the protagonist, kind of going like, okay, so he's faster than me going downhill, so I'm going to try this or something, right? Nope, he's just, now I'm in front and I see a bus full of children. I guess I'll stop. And just get like totally harangued there. Like everyone, and that's the thing is, like, when you see those moments, you go, not furthering the plot. So you have to say to yourself, does this further the subtext? Is there some information here that is crucial to the secondary reading on this? And I wrote a whole bunch of notes here, like, is the bus, also part of his emasculation, showing how he cannot provide for children? You know what I mean? Like, he tries
we meet his kids to push earlier.
The bus, right? And the kids come out and he's just like, cannot get them safe.
And they're making faces out the back window.
They're mocking him, putting him down, and he gets stuck under the bus, like it's literally going to kill him. And then when he does sort of like, like gets out of there, the friggin' truck shows up and does it for him.
And the truck driver pushes the bus.
Yes, pushes the bus out of the way. And I know this is not an original reading here, but like people are thinking of this truck as like, it's a societal emasculation, a metaphor for his wife or the growing role of women in society. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't help but sort of try and make some connection along those lines when it came to the bus or the train. I mean, at one point, the train, to your other example, and the bus and the train honk at each other as a wave. Remember that? They're driving along, the train's driving beside them, the truck and like the truck is like, burr, burr, hey, train, just out here literally trying to murder a guy, and they're just friendly tooting back and forth on each other. Why add these details if they aren't meaningful? You know?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really in the added 16 minutes I love. I mean, I'd say the least parts of the movie are some of the new stuff that he added. I do kind of like the opening of showing him pulling out of the driveway and having the credits go over as we go from city to the desert. I think that's kind of clever, and the way the camera is pointed out, like the windshield, or we're seeing or that at the end of the car, and we're seeing what he's seeing. Yeah. I like the way it opens. I like if it had just opened with like him pulling up behind the truck. I think that's too fast. I think we need.
No, that lulled you into a sense of like, this is just a road. This is just a movie about a road.
It's Easy Rider.
This is Koyaanisqatsi. I'm just gonna watch us driving down the road.
And then the other new part I like is him getting hit by the truck, because I do think that is scary. The idea that a train is right here and you're stopped and the guy's pushing you. I do think we can all relate to that. Like, that would be terrifying.
That's true, but I couldn't help myself thinking about the logistics of it too. This truck could easily have pushed him straight into the train. There's nothing holding him back except
then the movie's over.
So the guy was like, I just want to play with him, right? So I kind of got the idea that this big truck was trying to slowly wound him like an animal, like a gazelle or something. Like
it's like an animal, and
I thought, okay, that's adding to it. But the goal, like the front of the truck has multiple license plates on it, right? The bad truck has a bunch of license plates on it, which led me to believe I saw it and thought Mad Max when I saw it, right? Because it's like, is this a guy who drives out there purposely collecting trophies, trying to kill these people? And when he was threatening his life but not taking it, and then later when he could easily have like backed over his car and crushed it, or just run him over, because the guy was like, I'll leave the safety of my car and just run at your car. He could easily have been squished. So there was multiple instances where he could have died, but the truck driver chose not to kill him. Fine, I like the idea of playing with it, but to what end? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a growing sense of like you're getting more and more and more trapped. Instead, it was just a refusal to engage. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was, if I turn left off this exit, then I can get to safety, and he blocks him and corners him and slowly gets him farther out in the desert, or on a dirt road now, and like so you feel like he's hurting him towards his ultimate doom. Instead, it just kind of felt like the protagonist is kind of inviting this on himself, because he won't just literally pull off in the trees and then just sleep it off. You know what I mean? Or just like, I know that.
Well, he does at one point. He literally pulls off and he says, "I'm not budging for an hour," and he falls asleep, and the train wakes him up. And I'm led to believe that's been at least 2 to 3 hours, right?
Yep, you're right. I'm suggesting that was an initial experiment that proved it worked. You stayed alive. Like, you stay in your car off the road. Like, why get back on and why re-engage? Like,
because he thought he was gone.
It didn't even set up. Well, no, I mean, he went like, okay, the guy's waiting for me, kind of thing. Well, then just like take off and like don't get back on the road. Is the guy going to wait there day and night for him? I mean,
I think he would.
he may, but like, if
he has to find a different road.
If I'm in that situation, I'm not going like, well, he's going to wait for me, so I have to go through him. I mean, the guy is going to crush you. Like, that is the best alternative, is to, but look, that's movie logic anyway. It's like, you have to keep moving forward, right? So if you ever object to your protagonist moving forward, it's bad for the movie, and that's the best.
So this is my controversial take. Well, I think David Mann does almost everything right in this movie. There are very few parts where I'm like, except for him maybe like finding an alternate route and the movie's over. In terms of like what happens throughout, like I can't really hate on all of his choices for the most part.
I agree. Yeah, for the most part, he is methodical about.
He's
going,
not
okay,
a
let's see if I
stupid
can...
movie protagonist where we're yelling at the screen for 90 minutes.
No. Except for when he's running at the car. Like I understand that that's kind of a nice visual of like his just like total. I don't know what else to do. Like I'm trying to confront the thing head on kind of thing. Like I understand it's a nice story point, but to what end?
You wouldn't
like,
do that.
If the truck was slowing down, is he going to run up and like, I'm going to dismantle your car, or I'm going to crawl in with you? Like the closer you get, the more you're in danger. There's no other side of whatever he's going for there.
Well, it also plays with how he's doing psychologically too. Like I don't think we mentioned yet, we go into his head, we get voiceover. I don't think we hear it before the diner, right? But once we get to the
that's
diner,
the problem, is it's not established early on, and it's only used later in a way that really made me feel like there was a producer or someone over his shoulder going like, there's no one saying anything for too long. We've got to have something in here. Because all he does is say what we obviously know. He doesn't add any additional information.
Yeah. But I like that part. I mean, he is just he pulled off, he fell asleep. He's like, okay, he's got to be gone by now. And then one of the best shots in the movie is him driving, and then he spins out into the middle of the road.
That was great.
And then Spielberg zooms back, and we see like the truck. I love that shot. And then the camera, like from up high, it like zooms down almost like a bird all the way up to his face. I love those two shots together.
Yeah.
And he's just, I think at that point, he is like out of his mind. And that old couple drives up, and he's like, please help, call the police. And they just take off.
Right.
And so I think he's just like at his wit's end. It's been at least 6-7 hours, right? And he can't get away from this guy.
Yeah.
And I could just see someone in that, especially now. I could see someone like road rage. Hello, like someone just, you know what? I'm just gonna walk up there and I'm gonna punch this. I'm gonna fight this guy. So it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think if the guy had gotten out of the truck and they actually had a fist fight or something, that would have been a bad call.
Yeah, I agree. No, I don't think it was wrong for the movie at all. No,
but then the truck driver, doesn't he just drives up like just a little bit more and then pulls off again, and he's like, well, am I just gonna walk after this guy?
And then he does that little hand wave thing, right? It's like, come on, let's finish it up. Like,
I love the hand. Yeah. So I've like yesterday, I'm like, so what is this, the villain's motivation here? Does he want to kill David? You know, it's, for the most part, for me, it's a game for this guy. I mean, he probably doesn't have a very exciting life, and he's kind of at the end and like, well, I'm just gonna mess around with some of these drivers out here.
I mean, obviously, this is why else so many license plates? Am I missing some obvious reason here?
So they shot the movie in 12 days, and then the extra scenes they shot later. And I think they had to get different vehicles for the later shoot for the new footage. Mm-hmm. So it might have something to do with that.
No, I'm talking about on the bumper of the flammable vehicle truck. Like he had 6 license plates like screwed to the front of his truck.
Oh, okay. I never noticed that. So that's at the front of the car.
Yeah, yeah. Like we pan over it a bunch of times. Like it's like, I don't know if they're all Nevada or where it seems like. The only reason to include that detail, unless there's like some licensing or regulation reason that would make sense, where it's like, I gotta have a different plate for every state, like that said to me,
like maybe it's his victims.
This is his victims, exactly.
Oh, that's a good point. How have I never noticed that before? I think I'm always just staring at, it's such a crazy looking truck, like it's so just archaic, and it has a like, in Spielberg, like he talked about in the DVD, like he went out and they gave him like 8 trucks to choose from, and like 7 of them were more just kind of simple and what you would imagine, and then there was this one at the end, and he said, oh, that's it, because of the personality. It looks like a face, and it's so striking. And the other thing I love about the movie is that it's, from the beginning, it says in giant letters, flammable.
Yes.
So it makes sense, as we'll get to when we talk about the end, that it will just explode into a giant fireball, but it does.
Well, I mean, as we get closer here to the ultimate sort of confrontation, it to your point about, is he trying to kill him? What's his motivation here? It's a little bit ruined at the end for me, because what happens is you have to have a confrontation. We got to end this somehow, right? How is David going to succeed in winning here? He has to kill the truck, right? He has to kill the truck.
Yeah.
The only way to do that is to trick the truck. into self-destructing. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how how the trick made any sense if you're in a truck driving like that, right? You've got this little tiny car coming right at you. What are you thinking? You're driving in the truck, burp, burp, here he comes straight at me. I've demoralized and emasculated this guy so badly that he's just ready to end it. He's like, put me under your fender, end me now, and I'm just going to oblige him. So I need to step on the gas right over the cliff. Like, you can see the cliff. You've got an elevated position in the truck.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it happens so fast. I always think that so he's coming up. I'm not sure if the truck driver sees the cliff when he actually hits David's car, and it's not until, because it like erupts in flame right in front of him. Yeah. And I think the idea is that the truck driver can't see what's in front of him 4 or 5, 10 seconds or whatever it is. Yes. And then as soon as he does, he's like, oh, and you see him trying to stop. You see like the arm going like this.
Yes.
And I think he's trying to stop, and then, but he's just going a little too fast and goes over. That's never bothered me that much. I like that. I think if it had ended in a way where David played no real role in the truck driver's death, it wouldn't be as powerful. But
no, it needed to happen for the movie.
I'm going to make this happen myself. Yeah. He makes that happen. Which
yes, absolutely. I mean,
it's a little. I mean, yeah, you can nitpick it for sure.
It's a little contrived, but I agree. I wouldn't do it any other way. I'm not suggesting there's a better way for the film to do it.
Yeah.
But just before that moment, I mean, the reason I kind of was at that point of sort of like, this is sort of breaking my suspension of belief, is that when he is successfully getting away from him, right? He's like climbing this hill, and then that call back to the hose, the radiator hose, right? Where the engine overheats.
Mm-hmm.
The truck's not behind him at that moment when he realizes something's up, right?
Mm-hmm.
My brain was like, great, drive it off a cliff. You bail out, drive it off a cliff. He can't see you, hide behind a rock. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're free.
Oh, you mean like before the truck driver gets there?
Yeah, because the truck driver was struggling to come up the hill.
Yeah.
And he was driving up the hill, and suddenly his car goes like, guess what? I'm not driving anymore. He could have just said, great, briefcase to the pedal,
roll out of the car. His car goes off the cliff, and then what? And then the truck driver,
and then he scurries behind a cactus, and the truck driver comes up and
looks down at the car
heading off, and goes like, oh, I've succeeded, and drives off.
We'll try again tomorrow.
Right. I got to climb down there to get my other license plate.
I don't know. I think whether it's a 74-minute cut or 90-minute cut, I think you need a spectacular finale here. I mean, there's so much of the chase that I think if it ended in kind of a wah-wah.
Well, Brian, look, I don't make that argument because I think that would have made for a better film. It absolutely would have made for a worse film. All I'm getting at is that, like, as we're climbing this hill and the guy is pressing on the gas pedal, I feel the momentum of the filmmaker in that moment going like, I gotta build suspense here at all costs, including believability. And the fact that the engine was imploding and he was like, I was sitting there going like, what is David's plan? Like, what does he think he's going to do? Like, the engine is overheating, get to the top of the hill, and then coast down until the bottom of another hill. Like, what are you planning on doing here? Like, I guess he believes the engine it's just hot, cool it down and it will start up again. And then I can be fine.
Oh, you're talking about before he goes up the final hill for the last
final hill? That's right.
Are you talking about the previous part where he's going up that other hill? Yeah, and he's like, it's going to 20 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, right. And he's that part. Yes. What did you want him to do there? You wanted him to, because I don't think there's anywhere for him to pull off, right?
No, well, I mean, all I was suggesting is that if the engine is overheating, you're toast, you're done.
Yeah.
Right. So the only thing he has left is some fluke to happen. Yeah. Right. So I started spinning my brain saying like, okay, if I'm in this situation, what am I going to do? And that was my scenario of driving it off the cliff and bailing. And then like him thinking that it was at the bottom of a ravine. It doesn't make for a good movie. I understand that. So that's where I started to go like, oh, okay, we're not using logic here. We're trying to build suspense and we got to get to something that feels more complete. Yeah. And then I'm like, David, what are we doing? Like, because to him, does David know? He's never been on this road. Does he know that he's going to get over this hill, coast to the bottom? His car will start up, no problem. Drive up another hill, get up there, turn around, confront him, drive him off of it. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know at that. All he's doing is going like, don't quit on me, car. Yeah. And it drives up to the top. But realistically, he's got to be thinking, I'm dead. Like, I'm completely dead. why isn't he looking for alternatives other than the car? Right?
What would be an alternative? To like
drive it off the cliff, bail because he's not.
Is there like a cliff that we see when he's at the top?
The whole thing's a windy.
But isn't the truck close enough that he would see like him rolling out of the car?
Well, that's the thing is like I wish the filmmaker had put him in the rear view the whole way, because there's that whole thing where he's like, I've made it. He's like looking back there.
That's right.
There's no truck.
Yeah.
And then he's like, great, I've made it. But then the engine goes, we're not driving it.
But by the time that it's going down to 10 miles an hour and he's really freaking out, I think by that point,
that's right. He waits too long. Yes, that's right. Well, he says in the voiceover, and that's why I brought this up, is he says in the voiceover, oh, the radiator hose, right? Like he knows immediately when it starts to go down. Brian, I'm gonna let's just jump off my argument here because it's completely fruitless.
No. I understand. This is the kind of movie where there isn't a lot thematically happening that you're gonna put yourself in his shoes and think, okay, how would I do this differently? How would I do this better? Yeah. But like, so I thought you were first talking about when he hits the wall and the truck is coming at him, why did he drive up that dirt road?
Oh, no, that makes total sense.
Because
he was screwed at that point.
He had to get away from the truck and he has no idea where he's going. And I think it's just his decision to drive the car into the truck is like very quick. It's not like he's been planning that for 10 minutes.
No, all of it makes sense. I'm just, there's a moment there where before the radiator quits, where he thinks he's going to make it, and then the radiator quits. And the rest of the way that movie plays out is by necessity rather than driven by internal logic, is all I'm getting at. Do you know what I mean? And so I sort of came out of it at that point and was going like, okay, we're wrapping it up and I see what we have to do here story wise. But it just, you know what I mean? Like it felt a little sloppy, like they could have pushed things a little bit more. And that was my point earlier about having the truck driver trying to corral him into something. And it would have been nice if you kind of had a sense of what that was earlier on so that you could see that impending doom.
Okay.
And then for him to get out of it and it not be a fluke, right? Like I like him doing it under his own power rather than be a happenstance, but something pulling us towards the end rather than just like, oh, I guess he's just going to continue to drive it despite the obvious.
It's just a random like, I have to escape the truck and I'm going to go up this way. You would have liked there to have been like that. Maybe the truck driver had like a plan or something. This is where I'm going to trap him. Like,
and I mean, we don't have to get to we don't have to get to know the truck driver so much as that it could easily have been suggested. I mean, look, this movie is chock full of weird little suggestions. So like they knew how to do that. So they could easily have like pointed to a dark mountain, or like we could have seen some little sketchy road off to the side. You know what I mean? Like get a sense of like, he's pushing me that way. So that you knew that like that's where the end was.
Yeah, but sometimes I like horror films and thrillers where you don't really get a sense of what the villain is trying to do. Sometimes it's scarier for me when there is no plan, when it's just like this guy just woke up one day this day and he said, I'm gonna mess around with whoever pisses me off today, and this guy passed me, so you're my victim and I'm just gonna make a game out of this. Sometimes that can be just really scary because like the thought of either of us being on a road like that, and I mean, we'd have our phone, so hopefully there'd be self-service, but help. But it's like, I mean, we've all been on a road like that where we're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, what do you do when somebody like this shows up? And
I was half expecting you to tell me that the tarantula was also part of these reshoots.
The tarantula. So no, that scene where, we haven't even talked about that scene, right? Where he stops off, he gets like a little, he's like, what does he say to the lady? He's like, try to get a little bit of ethyl in it because he's already filled up the car once, right?
Yeah, he's like, whatever you can.
She's got this random telephone booth surrounded by like
slash petting zoo, right? In the middle of.
What does she say? Like, hey, go see some of my snakes if you got a second. Yeah. And that's I think that's one of the best parts of the movie is when he's on the phone, he's like trying to get help and the truck literally comes at him. Like we haven't seen the truck driver do that yet. Like, he's actually going to plow through. And that was really Dennis Weaver in the booth as the truck came.
I know. Yeah.
He
did a lot of stunts.
He wanted to do as many stunts as he could. I mean, I don't think he's driving in a lot of those like wide shots and stuff, but anytime we see it kind of close. So it was like a few seconds that he had to get out, and then I guess if the door got jammed or something, like they like the driver of the truck knew to like go to the left so he wouldn't kill him, but that would be kind of that Spielberg I'm sure was a little bit on edge during that.
Spielberg said, okay, so you know how they have roadside petting zoos with tarantulas and snakes and stuff. He's gonna have one of those because that's a touchstone to everyone's out west road trips. And the guy plows into the telephone booth
more than once.
Yeah, like keeps doing circles, like just mashing these animals. He doesn't care about any lives.
Yeah, and I think the truck driver is pissed at that point. That's why he's doing it.
And he's rolling around like there's a snake on his leg, and he's like, oh no, there's a tarantula. He's like,
the tarantula.
Oh no, tarantula on my leg. Like it really milked it,
And you can tell it's a real tarantula. Yeah, I don't think for the 90-minute cut, I don't think he shot like any inserts or like added on to like things. I think it was like any scene that was in the 74-minute cut is like complete in that. I think the only thing he added for the later cut was brand new scenes that kind of surrounded other things. But did you see Spielberg in that scene, Will?
Was he? I missed his cameo.
So he goes into the phone booth, and very clearly in the middle of the frame, right underneath, I think, Dennis Weaver's face, is Spielberg with the script, and he's standing there like this, kind of looking. Like it is like,
you mean it's an accident?
Oh yeah, an accident. So
okay.
So he was talking about on the DVD. He said that on this shoot he had no access to dailies. He literally shot for 12 days without seeing a frame of film. He had no idea if it would, and he was kind of relying on his DP. Yeah. And so they would check to make sure. I think they knew that it was going to look
properly.
that would have been a sad development.
Yeah.
But so it was too late. They couldn't go back and reshoot it. He said, yeah, if I had seen that on the dailies, I would have gone back the next day and reshot that part. Yeah. But so it's just there for all eternity. You see a young Spielberg standing there. It's like one of the clearest like reflection shots of a director you've ever seen in a movie.
That's good.
So yeah, that's a fun. I mean, I think the movie has enough. If it was just the driving.
Yeah. Yes.
I think there's just enough outside of the driving. I mean, I know you had issues with the diner scene. I really like that scene because I can kind of put myself in issues of like looking at the boots and like, okay, which one of these 7 gruff older guys is, and I love how he says, oh, it's this guy in the booth. It's him. Yeah. And then we watch him go out and get in a different vehicle. And then isn't there a second time where we see another person leave and get another? It's like, and he's like, now he's going crazy.
And the only objections I have to it are just that I wanted it to be even better, because I that's a part that I really enjoyed, the suspense of that. And I think that a thin premise seeming, if you say it out loud, like then he watches to see which one, like that sounds boring, but I think this suspense was successful here, where you really did want to, I can identify it, I can figure out, you really get into it, and you enjoy watching which vehicle he goes to. The fake outs work. I enjoyed those. That slow paced stuff was good because you knew what you were watching for, right? Whereas the other stuff was just miles of driving. And there's times when you just feel like that truck is right on his bumper, and then you'd catch another shot. Nope, it was a little ways back, and you're just like, stop playing with me, man. Like, where are we going now? What's happening in
Spielberg does, he changes up the angles enough. I do like when we're getting, as we've talked about that part where he's trying to get to the top, we go really close to his face, like more so than we have before. We get some from underneath him, like where we see like the wheel, which is really like a weird shot. And then when he's like just gone bonkers crazy, when David is just like really sweating it out, the camera's like right here. Like it's and he's just going, it's like, okay, he like, and we believe him, right? Yeah. We believe his pain there. Do you have like a favorite shot of the movie? I know we've talked about some issues of that ending. I think the shot of the film is just that gorgeous shot of the truck going off the cliff. And Spielberg talks about how he had a bunch of cameras set up for that. He was planning to cut it together, but he just used the one because we see it just like an animal slowly die all the way down. You know? Yeah. And did you notice the dinosaur roar? As the truck goes off, it's like a dinosaur roar.
Is it okay? Well, I thought I was reading that he used the sound of the truck falling off in a later film too.
Yes. So, well, I read that the sound of like the roar is from Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a movie I've not seen in a long time. I'm like, was there a dinosaur in that? But but it sounds like a dinosaur, a big creature of some kind.
Yeah.
And then Spielberg used that same sound when the shark dies in Jaws.
Yeah.
We get the same shot in Jaws of the the dead exploded shark going down. And like it looks, and they actually on the DVD they show the two shots next to each other. They look almost exactly the same, and we hear the same roar in Jaws, which is kind of cool. Because Spielberg talked about how those two films were very connected for him, right? Like a lot of, I mean, obviously it's a much richer experience in Jaws, but like the four letters of the title and man versus beast, right. You know, there's a lot similar between the two.
Yeah, that's right. Well, to answer your question, Brian, about what my favorite shot was, it was the one directly after that really beautiful sun behind him, ring around thing. That
the last shot.
Yeah, like you get that it was such a contrast. The others were like, there's a bunch of nice looking stuff in there, but that one was like beautiful. And it was nice that it was a kind of climax, you know, emotional climax where it kind of feels like the thing is over, sunset, like all of that works really nice.
He's like throwing rocks. He's just like chilling. I don't know what his night is looking like because it's about to get dark. I don't know.
He's gonna die in the desert of dehydration. And probably that snake got him too earlier.
Duel 2. It could have been him like trying to get back to the road, and then there's like an animal coming at him, and he has to like run.
Or just go even more abstract, just man versus nature, right? Just the desert trying to kill him.
He can't find the road.
Well, you know, I want to ask you this, Brian. The character of David is sympathetic because of road rage and fear of death. These are things that we can all sort of identify with.
Yeah.
We don't get any other things about him that are likable.
Okay. Oh, you didn't see him as a very likable person. I actually kind of like that about his character, that he's not just like this super sweet, like Tom Hanks, like innocent.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I like having a unique character, and I think he certainly is that. And I'm not arguing to say that he ought to be something else so much as I was just picking up on the fact that he was a very stodgy, sort of bland guy, and the bits of things that you did get about him were just weird, because like when he smashes into the fence, the white picket fence, for instance, which I'm just like, another metaphor, like he just feels like it, but he feigns this dramatic, like, oh my neck, oh my goodness, and then he like
my neck,
and then there's like the guy leaning in the window, like this old farmer guy is just like, you seem fine, what's the deal? And he's just like, I truly feel this might be my final moments. And then he opens the door and then just silently wanders into the thing. And the whole time you're just like, what is up, man? Like, what is your deal? Even when he gets angry in the road rage sense, he's just like this robot that suddenly clicks on, and he's just like, I'm super mad about that. That really pissed me off. And he says some like quick jabs that are kind of really, you know what I mean? Just you're just like, this is a guy. You don't feel like, oh, I'm getting into this character, I'm identifying with him, anything like that. I mean, it's a choice. It's fine. I just was observing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like there's very little room for backstory here, like outside of that call to his wife. And I'm not sure if we need to have a character. I don't think I need that character to have a lot more for me to latch on to. I kind of like that it's just kind of this one note guy that we don't get to know at all. And it's like, because we put ourselves in his position, what would we do if we had to go through a nightmare like this? And I mean, I'm not that familiar with Dennis Weaver's work. I guess he's in Touch of Evil, and he was on some television series. And I mean, I think he does a great job in this role. Like, I really like what he brings to the character, even though, as you say, it is kind of one note. I mean, the scene you just mentioned, I mean, he is going 90 miles an hour at the end of that hill, and probably he's never driven that car faster than 70. And he not only hits that fence really hard, but he's like swinging through and past like 6 cars, and then he just bashes it. I mean, I think, wouldn't we all will kind of go like this? What is your criticism? Just that he's kind of wimpy about it?
Well, I think he was set up poorly for it, because I think absolutely you would be like, ow, this hurts. But Steven was like, keep going. We've got an hour and a half to fill here. You know what I mean? He was like, no, I don't think. And that part is what, 30, 40 seconds? That old guy just says, hey, you okay? And then he goes in and
Yes,
I would just be like, yes, you'd be in shock, but you'd just be like, holy shit, like what is, you know what I mean? Like you'd be so hopped up on adrenaline, you just like fly out of the car and be like, am I still in danger? Like what is going on? Instead he like, yeah, you're right. That was very traumatic. He smashes into that and he just goes like, oh, must lose my tie now. Oh,
well, I think he thinks that it's over, right? That the truck driver kept going, because we just get that early part where he passes him a couple times, and then the chase where he's like, oh my god, this guy is like trying to kill me, and he says that more than once, right? You know, some truck driver just tried to kill me.
Yeah.
But I think he thinks it's over there.
Yeah.
And he is shocked when he goes to the bathroom and he comes out and he sees the truck. It's like,
but if that happened, I don't know. Yeah, everyone reacts differently. It's valid. It's fine. I don't have a good criticism here so much as it just bothered me, right? And like when it got out, I wouldn't have reacted that way. I wouldn't have recognized that as a way that someone would react. And all I'm saying is like he's entitled to his reaction. That was fine. It just really stood out. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it could have, and they could have been doing other things that would have told me something about the character. I mean, what does that tell me about the character?
Yeah.
That he is like slow and plotting, or do you know what I mean? Like it just didn't do anything for me and was weird unnecessarily seeing it.
I like how at first he's just kind of annoyed by this guy. I like the evolution of how he slowly starts to recognize that I'm in danger here. You know, in the beginning, he's just like, hey, I gave you the road. Why don't you take it?
Right.
And
right.
Maybe my favorite line in the whole thing is when doesn't he pass him like twice? Oh, no. I think it's when the truck is like doing this, like swerving.
Yeah, right.
And he can't, and it just stays close on Dennis Weaver. And he goes, I don't believe it.
Right.
I don't believe it. That's like my favorite part. I don't know if it's necessarily because it's the best line reading in the whole movie, but it's not. The worst one is when he's getting pushed towards the train, and he turns and he goes, no, stop, and all he does with his mouth is go.
Right.
I'm like, you're led to believe that he opened his mouth that wide, and what's coming out of his mouth right there is no stop.
Yeah.
It's like in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when Charlie is going up, he's like floating and he's going wee, but his mouth is so wide open.
Right. Yeah.
It's not humanly possible to make the sound wee.
The wee. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, that part always makes me laugh. His mouth open. No, stop.
Yes, that's right.
Like that's gonna work.
I mean, I think you to invalidate my own point further. I think it's right to point out movies of the time too, because it happens in all movies in the 70s. Like this isn't something that I saw here and was just like, oh, how weird is this? It's like a very 70s kind of acting thing.
Yeah, it's 71. It's a TV movie of the week. I mean, Spielberg could have gotten a real stinker of an actor in this thing. Like, could have just this movie lives or dies by the lead performance. I mean, it's maybe not like the best actor he could have gotten, but I'm not that familiar with Weaver's work, as I said, and I think he does what the role calls him to do in this movie. Yeah. And we see his frustration and his fear and his terror at the end, and his relief when it's over, when he's just throwing the rocks. I mean, there's a lot of really nice touches I think he brings to this.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's probably one of the challenges you face in doing this podcast is balancing critique of the film from your modern point of view versus contextualizing it. And like you constantly have to bounce back and forth between your gut reaction, which is like, I don't like this, right? And the like, well, considering everything, it's actually really good. And like, those are both really valid arguments. The thing that's weird to me is the cult following that I read about in the literature online about how it is still really beloved. And
Duel.
Yeah. And I mean, if someone loves something, go for it, right? There's no argument to be made about not loving something. But what is interesting to me about that is just, what is it precisely that people love about it? I mean, there's got to be a panoply of reasons. Like, I'm sure nostalgia plays into it in a big way. But also, like, someone new like me who would come into it, what reason would I have to engage with it in a way that would turn me into a cult follower of a film like this? And I don't know that there's a lot aside from maybe the quirks of it. Do you know what I mean? That I have some personal connection to, because it doesn't measure up to maybe my modern taste or expectations or things like that. So I kind of have to like constantly step back from my opinions and go like, well, I don't know, you know. And it is honestly, I really enjoy these old films. I enjoy doing this podcast with you because I get to see older things that I wouldn't go out of my way to see, and they are weird and kind of endearing sometimes when you feel like, I noticed that was really strange. That's going to stick with me.
Will, I think a big reason why this movie is so beloved to this day is a lot of people, including myself, have a very deep love and affection for the work of Steven Spielberg. And, you know, I mean, the first movie that I remember really loving as a kid in the theater was Jurassic Park. And I mean, a lot of us see his movies very young, movies like Jaws and Close Encounters and E.T. and Jurassic Park. And when you look at his career as a whole, you know, his very first great thing he did is Duel. And then you can see on the screen a young, hungry filmmaker who has very little time, and he's gonna break through with this film, even though it's telling a very simple story. I think in 71, if you had 9 other directors of the time make this movie in 12 days, I don't think it would come close to what we get here. I mean, I don't know how many people at that time could have made a movie like this. And it's just kind of like, as I said before, very early on, I said, you know, most people kind of think about the early Spielberg film as Jaws. But when you dig deeper into his long filmography, I will say, that has a lot of movies I don't like very much. I mean, I would say he's made at least 10 that I would say I don't like. It's not like
AI though, right? AI's
AI is very good. AI is very interesting. I like AI. But, you know, I mean, I'm not a worshiper of Spielberg. I would not put him in my top. I don't think he'd be in my top 5 favorite directors. He'd probably be in the top 10. And part of that has to do with, which we'll talk about at the end, I don't think he's really made a great film in the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I had that feeling too, scrolling through his IMDb.
And that plays a role. Like if you make films for 50, 60 years and there's like a window where you're making great stuff, and then the last 20, 25 years, it's just a lot of kind of good, mediocre fare. I think that takes you down a little bit, you know, as opposed to someone like David Lynch, who in 40 years, 30 years, 35 years made only 10 films.
Yeah.
And I love almost all of them. That's a whole different, I think that's why a lot of people like worship like Kubrick and some of these guys who would take 5 to 10 years between movies. And then every time they would bring out a new one, they would deliver. Spielberg, he is always making films. He's always working. If he's not directing something, he's producing something else. He is not, I mean, there were times where I think, was it 97? I think it was when he did Lost World, Jurassic Park, Amistad, and Saving Private Ryan. He was working on all 3 at the same time. And it's like, oh my God, like how do you do 2 movies at the same time, let alone 3?
Yeah.
And so this is the
5 editors.
This is, I don't know. For me, it's like, it's the early glimpse of his mastery as a director is this film. And it's just the simplest of his entire filmography. It's just like a guy in a truck, and I really love the energy in it. You can feel like, you know, I mean, I think the editing, which we've talked about a little bit, I think the editing of Duel is what makes it as good as it is. I think, you know, if there were a lot of, I mean, I think we get like one shot in this whole movie where it's a really wide shot and you see the car and then the truck, and it looks like they're going 10 miles an hour and there's no tension. You know, it relies on the quick cutting and the close-ups of David and all of that. And I don't think it's a perfect film. It wouldn't be in my top 5 Spielbergs. It'd be in my top 10. I would put it in my top 10.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
So anything else we have to say about the movie, Will? We've talked about the ending. How, like, anything else, any other scenes or moments or shots? Do we mention that shot very early on that I love? It's one of my top 2 or 3 shots in the movie, where we start on David in the car and the camera tracks away from the car, keeps going, and then we track all the way around the truck to the other side, and then the camera kind of tilts up towards the windshield, even though we don't see the driver. That's one of the most like impressive shots in the movie. Would you say?
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, there's a number of times when I appreciated the fact they didn't cut and just let the guy. There's one where they're looking at the truck and they just kind of dip to the road and then back up to him behind them, and it keeps you in the moment, keeps you in the action. Did
you want to meet the truck driver at any point? Do you like that we don't see him?
Yes. No, that's totally smart choice on that one. I don't know that any of it's brilliant. That's the hard part here, is that I don't know any of these are things that you're just like, oh man, like the mastery of writing. Like you look at it and just go like, these are the obvious story beats that you need to hit in a basic premise, and he does it well. But I mean, that's the thing, is that often very simple premises can be very mismanaged. And to your point, like this is a simple premise for a format that demands simple premises based on the audience, and he does more than he needs to by a long shot with it. And so you can appreciate it on that level. From the writing all the way up.
Yeah, I can't remember what documentary it was. George Lucas shared a story. He was kind of aware of Spielberg a little bit, and then found out that his movie Duel was going to air on TV. So he got his friends and they said, let's watch this. Let's see if it's any good. You know, what's this guy made of? And he talked about how they were like, holy shit, this is really good. And again, I've said it once before, I think people were not used to movies this good for a TV movie of the week. Right. So you kind of have to look at it that way too.
Yes.
You know, that it was made for television.
Yes.
In 71, right?
Yes, that's right. Totally.
So it's kind of interesting that way.
That's the disclaimer. Keep in mind. Made.
So Will, I've now seen the follow-up movie Spielberg did to this from 1972, another TV movie called Something Evil. And it is awful. It is just poorly paced. It's like a ghost story, but it's never scary. The motivations aren't clear. Like the acting is flat. And you watch Something Evil from 72 and you're just like,
I won't do that.
Like, there's nothing there of any interest. And it just looks like he's just kind of like going through the motions with the script, and you don't see the passion that I do believe you see in Duel. And that's why we see Duel on current Blu-rays and Spielberg collections, and we do not see Something Evil.
Yes. Yeah.
This is kind of interesting. So my last question about the movie, Will, is if they make Duel in 2021, what do they change? How does this movie look different if a young director wanted to remake Duel in 21? How do they make it different, or what do they keep the same?
Ooh, great question, Brian. I think we have a number of existing examples of what a modern filmmaker might do with this type of material. I think the challenge in this thought experiment is not so much what visually you would do, because I think obviously light flares and explosions and flips and much more dynamic sorts of car action, probably like to superhero levels, right? They would just like juice it to the Rock and Statham, size car. Like, I haven't seen Fast 9 either, but I believe they swing from a jungle vine in a car at one point. So like we've taken it to space at this point. And I think that there's no way someone would approach a film like this and not go there, right? Just go like all the way back. Otherwise, it's getting released in 10 theaters for 2 weeks and no one's going to see it. I mean, I'm assuming the question comes along with like, how do we make a marketable movie off of this premise?
Or it could be like, let's remake Duel and do it kind of the same, like kind of low tech, and not have it be Fast and Furious 9, and maybe make it for Amazon Prime or Netflix, or maybe like a streamer or something. I think you're right. Well, if you were to make Duel today and you wanted it to go to 4,000 screens, it would have to be on the level of like a Mission Impossible or Fast and Furious. You couldn't just do this kind of low tech, quiet, thriller like this. So, but if they were to make, if the director could make it like the 71 movie and not have to have the truck, flying into space. Like, what do you think would be different about it? And especially if it were set in 2021, would the cell phone play a
the cell phone is the number one question. You would have, I hope that the director wouldn't go, oh man, I can't get service out here, right? I hope they would deal. I guess I'll just throw the phone away then. I would hope that they would deal with it in a more clever way. And it makes me wonder if there would be some twist in there, Brian. It's coming to me now. With Apple AirTags, I wonder if there would be some level of surveillance that would play a role in here. Modern sensibilities, right? That's what we're talking about here, trying to make it a modern concept. Certainly road rage is one of them, but I think one of the more insidious, creepy parts about our modern day and age is the way that you can be tracked, right?
Yeah.
Like, seen either through the truck driver just has a full laptop and he's got your tags and now he knows everything about you and where you're going. And, if he's tagging you with air tags or if he's just, using satellites or something, but I mean, some way where you can't escape this guy. I think it's important that you stay in the desert. I think that's a great location, and you need to, there's still isolated roads. There's still distance out there.
You wouldn't want to see it like in LA, like on the freeway. Like, it becomes speed.
Yeah. I mean, you got to take away and I don't know that I'd take it to the Arctic or the jungle or anything like. I think the desert is fundamental to the concept because it's stripped down to the environment is stripped down.
Yeah.
But maybe maybe Apple AirTags is the new twist on this, and it's about obliterating him, not just physically, but like, you could take photos and put them on social media. You know what I mean? Maybe the guy's maybe the phone is part of it, where he's like scrolling on Instagram, going like hashtag being chased by a car, hashtag road rage.
He's driving down the road and he's got his Instagram live, like going out the back.
Yeah, the guy's got a live streaming camera on the dash of his car, and he's live streaming the kill. I feel like that's been done. I don't know. That sounds like a familiar premise. That's where I'd go with it.
I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be kind of exciting to get a really great actor in this role, like a really like a theatrical, maybe an Oscar nominee or Oscar winning actor in his 30s, early 40s, and just like make it even more insane and intense, but on a level that's realistic.
You dropped Timothy Chalamet in there.
Timothy Chalamet.
You got Anthony Hopkins driving the truck.
Yeah. No, it could be Liza Minnelli in the truck singing. Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think but I'm thinking like a Jake Gyllenhaal, Gyllenhaal in this role, and somehow fit in some more backstory. I think a little bit more would be fun. And then
Brian, not to interrupt you, but didn't they do a movie with Mad Max himself where he was driving a pickup truck and stalking this poor woman and her child?
Yeah, Tom Hardy, I believe the film is called Locke.
Oh, Tom Hardy's in it.
Tom Hardy, the one where the guy, like the whole movie is just like in that car with Tom Hardy.
Yes, yeah. Oh, driving. I thought it was.
That's the one you're thinking.
No, I thought it was the original Mad Max. What's his name?
Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I thought Mel Gibson was the one driving the truck for a minute there. No, it was Tom Hardy.
Oh, is there a movie where Mel Gibson is driving a truck for most of the movie? I don't know if I've seen that one. The one like a very famous recent example of a movie of a guy in a car for 90 minutes or however long the movie is Tom Hardy, who was Mad Max in the newest one.
Right.
And it has people who love it. I kind of struggled through it. I mean, you do don't go outside the car. Like you're just like in a car for a whole movie.
Yeah, that's not the movie I'm thinking of. I didn't watch it. I don't know the title. I just saw a preview of it once, and I think it's Mel Gibson. I'm going to type into Google Mel Gibson. His
last big theatrical movie was Signs from 2002, and then he directed for a while. And then I want to say in the last 5 years, he's popped up in a few smaller action films, and I don't think I've seen any of them. So it might be one of those that you're talking about. I'm just not.
Maybe I'm calling the wrong actor. Sorry, I'm drawing this out. But the point is that there's a guy who's driving in a truck, and it's another road rage situation where the guy believes that she pissed him, she cut him off.
Is it the one with Russell? The one with Russell Crowe?
There we go. Russell Crowe.
Unhinged.
That's why I got him confused. Yep, yes. That's the one.
Yes, I saw that. That's actually, that wouldn't be a bad kind of recent example to compare with Duel. It is kind of the same thing. We get more backstory. I watched it like a few months ago. We rented it. It was fun. And it was weird to see Russell Crowe as this really just down and dirty villain and just saying the most awful things. And it's like I'm trying to remember, does she bump into him? I'm trying to remember how it starts, but she pisses him off, and the whole movie is him going after her, and she's got like her kid in the back, and it's a very modern version of Duel. So that's Russell Crowe, and he's pretty great in it. So that one's that's a perfect segue to our second to last segment, which is called the Divine Double Feature. Is that the movie you would pick for your modern take? Is Unhinged, Will, or do you have another one? Like, what would be a good
I got another one. And
what would be a good pairing with Duel?
It's got multiple levels. I went for Better Call Saul, which I know is a TV show, but this also was 2 for TV, so I think I can slip it in there. It was season 5, episode 8. It was all about Saul trapped in the desert, trying to get out with those bags of cash. I don't know if you follow that show or not, but
I've only seen the first 2 seasons. I've been meaning to catch up.
Okay, I won't spoil it too much, but he has to go pick up in the middle of the desert enormous amounts of money in a duffel bag and then drive it back. And a rival gang stops him and nearly kills him. And he does kind of what I was suggesting earlier, where he actually does push it in a ravine. He pushes his car in a ravine to make them think that he's dead or whatever. And he takes off through the desert, and he has to survive the desert to get out. And meanwhile, these marauders are driving up and down this only dirt road, looking for glimmers of reflections and stuff to snipe him out in the desert. So it's a very much the same kind of like man versus another sort of faceless man for survival. So that's what I'd pair it with, because I really got gripped by that. That's a great example of suspension, a slow pace, a lot of deep tension occurring throughout the course of the episode.
Oh, cool. So that's episode 8, you said, of season 5?
That's right.
Okay. Yep. So as I continue I've been meaning to get back into it, and I'm excited now to get to season 5. I didn't know. I thought it was only like 4 seasons. I didn't even know there was a 5th. So
they're filming number 6. I mean, talk about a series or a master of suspense. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, all of those episodes, I feel like are real master classes. Setting up things. And I mean, that's kind of my point earlier about like being able to see the destination. It's like, we need to get here, or this needs to happen. And it's not some elaborate thing where it's like spelled out completely, so much as where your people are headed, where they're trying to go. In this episode, for example, that they're trying to prevent him from getting to the road, the access road. He's trying to get to the access road. So that's all really, and that's all you need to know, is like that's what sets the stakes, because as they get closer, as the longer they go, he's winning, and then his setbacks feel even bigger. Whereas this one just goes and goes and goes. Duel. So you're just like, what's it going to take? That's why when they get out of the road, they try and do fisticuffs and stuff. You're like, sure, why not? Nothing else is working. Like, you're not really you're not racing to the end. You don't have that sense of being pulled towards an ultimate destination. You're just there to find out what happens. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to watch this. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm probably just gonna binge like whatever has aired at this point, because it's all right there on Netflix. So I will get to it. So my pick is the same movie, Will, I chose for the best Kurt Russell movie on our last episode. And that's Breakdown from 1997, which is all in the desert. Also a simple thriller of just him and his wife in a car. And she and the truck driver, a lot of trucks in Breakdown, and he gets out, and the wife goes with the truck driver, and Kurt Russell stays put, and then his wife is missing. And
truckers are really maligned in the movie industry. These poor guys are hardworking,
truck drivers,
backbone of American industry, and they're seen as villains.
Yeah,
cool.
But I think it's a great pairing. Like, it's in the desert. It's also a great. Kurt Russell plays a great everyman. And so it's 26 years later. So that was 97. And it ends with a really cool car chase that does a little bit more modern things than we see in Duel. But it also has a truck dangling off a cliff at the end. There's a lot of similarities. So I think if you've never seen Breakdown, check it out. It'd be a good double feature pairing with Duel. All right. So our final segment, Beyond the Flick, talking about the work of Mr. Steven Spielberg. I'm sure we will talk about him again at some point, but this is his first big movie, and I wanted to touch on his career a little bit, and I wanted to find out, in his long 50-year career, his new movie, is coming out in December, West Side Story.
It's not Ready Player 2.
He has remade, I don't know how much of a remake it is, if it's like a real direct remake, or if it's something a little bit newer and different, I don't know, but that's coming out in December. So if you consider Duel his first feature, it's been a 50-year career, and he's been super active all the way through. His longest gap, I want to say, is between Schindler's List in 93 and Lost World Jurassic Park in 97. So about 4 years, 3.5 years. But in the middle there, he was starting his own studio, DreamWorks, SKG. And I think he produced like 5 or 6 movies in that. So he's never really taken a breath in 50 years. Will, he's always been producing and directing films. If you had to pick 3 to take with you to a desert island, what are the 3, not necessarily his best films, what are your 3 favorites that you would take with you to a desert island for Spielberg?
Well, I think you mentioned this, Brian, is that our generation has a kind of childhood nostalgia with this particular filmmaker. I think he made a lot of things that were emotionally exciting to us. So whether I appreciate it as an adult is kind of irrelevant because they're burned in, to the heart. I don't know that I care to sit down and watch these movies again. I would. Okay, so let me just get into them. Indiana Jones, I really, that's fun. I don't really care which one, although I like Sean Connery, so that's a lot of fun. Probably not Temple of Doom. Not a big fan.
Oh, that's my favorite of the 4.
I know it usually is people's favorite. I don't like it.
Really, I feel like most people like Raiders the most. No,
really? No, you're probably
the first one.
I like Raiders too, but yeah, Sean Connery. That would be
Sean Connery. Yep,
that'd be my take.
Okay.
Hook's the other one. Now, Hook's number 1. I should have did the
Hook is your number 1 Spielberg.
Hook would be number 1, and I'll tell you why. Okay. You may recall in the film a shot where the children are tucked into their beds, and the pirates come into their house and lift the sheet, like pull the sheet right off the bed, and the kids are terrified on the mat. Talk about like a really excellent way to worm your way into children's minds. Like you mess with the bed formula, you're gonna trigger some strong emotions in kids because you don't put your feet off the mattress. Your blanket is your protector. Like being dialed into that level of sincerity with kids and the importance of the bed routine and the way that it protects you from dreams and all those kinds of things, I think was a really excellent part of that movie. And that alone really got me. There's other emotional parts in the movie too, but that one just really flashes up to me when I think of Hook. It's so good.
That's so interesting. I mean, I think for most people, Hook is like bottom of the rung Spielberg. Like that's like towards the bottom. And I've never felt that way. I love Hook. It's the first movie of his I saw in a theater. It came out in the fall of 91. Yeah. And I think watching it today, it has a lot of flaws. Like Julia Roberts' performance is a little off. Yes. And I do really enjoy Dustin Hoffman as Hook. I think he brings a lot to that role that not every other actor would have. Like he's really having fun. Yeah. And secretly playing him as gay with Smee. Did you know that?
I didn't. That's awesome.
No, when they were in production, it's never really, I mean, it's hinted at, but like he played it as a gay man, which I find really funny today. Yeah. And, like it's too long. There's too much of the Lost Boys and them playing games. It's like 30-40 minutes in the middle of the movie. Yes. But there's something, I love the score. John Williams' score is just fantastic in Hook, and it's a lot of fun. It probably would be like number 9 or 10 of my favorite Spielbergs. I really like it.
It's got that classic 90s Rube Goldberg machine style stuff happening in it too. It's like from, I don't know, the mid 80s to the mid 90s, everything had to include some elaborate machine to do a simple basic task. And that's like featured heavily in here with the Lost Boys and stuff, which is, kids love it. I loved it. It was great. But the other, it's Robin Williams. He's the one that makes it, for me. And the powerful emotion you feel when he, sincerely loves his kids. That's a really cool thing too. So I agree. I could rip it apart if we watched it now. Like I would have no trouble.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it in a long time?
It's been a while. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while. So, I mean, I'm relying on a nostalgic lens here for the things that mattered to me specifically, but yeah, I may make that choice and get to the desert island and go like,
So every year I watch a director's films like from beginning to end, and I actually did a year of Spielberg in 2020. It was something I decided to do when the pandemic hit, and I just wanted something really safe and fun and but there were still, even in 2020, I want to say there were 5 or 6 of his features I had not seen before. So I was like, well, let's go through, and so I watched Duel last year. I just watched it recently. It's fresh. And Hook. So yeah, I watched Hooker fresh. It was best when I was 7 or whatever it came out.
That's right.
But it is charming, and I've never understood the hate that it gets. It's really not. I mean, there was a 2.5-3 hour documentary that came to HBO, Will, called Spielberg, and it's a movie, a documentary all about his 50-year career or whatever it is. And I think Hook gets like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I think in 3 hours, or however long that movie is, we get like a 3-second shot of Hook. And then we'll get like, 30 minutes on Jaws. And it's like,
Hook, I know Jaws.
Couldn't get someone to talk about Hook? Okay. But that's part of like the charm of it too, is it's not the movie that everyone talks about when they talk about Spielberg too. So that would be up there for me. My top 3, it wouldn't be his dramas. I love The Color Purple and Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. Those are 3 of his best films, but they wouldn't be in my favorites. Like, I want to watch it right now. For me, it's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. That might have been the first film I saw of his, like when I was like 4 or 5 on home video, because I still remember my parents, we had like the green VHS tape of E.T. So I might have seen it as early as 88, 89. And, that movie gets a little bit of hate now, especially because it was so popular in 82. And when movies are that gigantic, huge blockbuster hits, sometimes it's like, oh, it's a little sentimental at times, but it's a really charming movie. I still love it. And another one of John Williams' best scores. And number 2 would be Jaws. I just think that's just one of his finest like thrill rides he ever constructed very early in his career. And I don't know if you've seen the documentaries about Jaws, but the making of that movie was just hell on earth. Wild. And the fact that it came out as good as it did, it's such a miracle to me. It's so crazy. And then my favorite would be Jurassic Park. I just think if I had to take only one with me, it'd be Jurassic Park. That for me is Spielberg at his absolute best. And it's still crazy to me that he managed to direct that film and Schindler's List in a single year. Arguably his like 2 finest works of cinema, and he did it back to back. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And have you seen Jurassic Park in recent years? It still holds up. It's a great yarn, great cast. The special effects still look really great. I still, it's not just a nostalgia thing. I still think it's a great thrill ride. I really love it.
No, it really holds up. That's a very enduring film. I even to the point that my son, who's 5, knows it by name simply because it's an example of dinosaurs that's used in just about everything. Like, he comes to know Jurassic Park. There was a countdown video or something about all the dinosaurs, and they were like, countdown for Jurassic Park dinosaurs. So he was like, I want to see Jurassic Park, Dad. And I was like, did your mom show you Jurassic Park? No, it was just the YouTube clip. But
it's pretty scary for young kids.
But I mean, the taking the glasses off and seeing the brontosaurus and stuff, like all that stuff it stacks right up there to any modern rendering or anything like that. He doesn't, like, if I showed him some claymation stuff, he'd be like, let's pass, Dad, right? But like the Jurassic Park stuff holds up even to his modern taste.
I've never understood this. Well, how is the CGI in Jurassic Park, how does it still look in some ways better today than modern movies? What did they do in 93 with the computer to make it so it would last for 30 years? I don't know.
This is a kind of touching on a pet peeve of mine, mostly because I work in visual effects and motion graphics stuff. So I come across this observation frequently enough, and they just used a lot of practical stuff too. You know what I mean? Like, they were smart about it. They were using a lot of practical stuff. They had groundbreaking CGI too, no doubt. But it's just how thorough they planned everything out and made sure that they had physical representations on set. And that's just something they didn't do in the 2000s, the aughts or whatever. They said, we can just go full CGI and it's cheaper, and people got the bad taste in their mouths. So, there's plenty of examples of really stellar CGI, fully CGI stuff. I mean, I'm a defender of the Transformer movies for that reason. Like, they're meant to be goofy and silly, but like, they visually hold up in a lot of ways. I hate them for story reasons, a lot of other reasons too, but I mean, practically from the CGI, both can be done very well. It's an odd sort of like fight that is meaningless, where they go like, puppets and things are better than CGI, and it's like, these are all tools in our palette. How we use them responsibly and wisely is what dictates quality or not.
So, and it's not to say that modern films don't have spectacular CGI. I mean, I think about Gravity, which would be another kind of cool movie, like a pair with Duel, and that it's really about one person for almost the entirety of the movie. But that, I mean, is almost entirely made of CGI shots for 90 minutes, and it looks as real as anything else. So it can be done. But it just always amazes me when the T-Rex comes out and you see it in full and it looks so real. It's like, wow. I mean, that's why it was so spectacular in 93 when we all saw it, because when you see it up close, you know that's a puppet. They actually built it. But when you see it full on wide and you see the whole T-Rex moving, that's not really there on set, and it looks really good.
Well, I mean, I saw at just recently Tammy and the T-Rex. Is that what it's called? Tammy and the T-Rex?
I have had the great misfortune of watching that film.
That is a good polar opposite of dinosaur tech being used in films. So there's a spectrum. That's how you use it.
There were some dinosaur films at the time. There was a Carnosaur. There was the one with Whoopi Goldberg. What was that? Theodore Rex.
I actually really don't like most of the T-Rex stuff. It got crazy. It got to a fevered pitch. I mean, and I grew up at that time too, when it should be my most beloved stuff, but it got gross. It got gross. Like the remember the Mario movie where they had the lizards?
The Mario movie with the lizards,
yeah, like all that stuff. I was just like, this is gross. I don't. Or even like
also 93 Super Mario Brothers.
What's the Don't Feed Them After Midnight Gremlins?
Gremlins.
That stuff. It's like that. I feel like that's that, early 80s or 80s kind of stuff. There was like this massive gross out. I'm sorry, I'm jumping tangents a lot too, but like the 20,000 Twilight Zone episode that we were referencing later, they remade it like in 78 or something, right? For a television as well, but using modern prosthetics and modern.
Oh, you're talking about the 83 movie anthology that had John Lithgow in the
that's
same
the one
segment.
I'm thinking of. Yes, that's right. Yeah, and just like how profoundly gross that is compared to the other one, which was like an entirely psychological thing. The other guy was just like in a fursuit. It was pretty ridiculous.
It's like a fursuit, exactly.
Yeah, but in the 80s, like, it is like profoundly gross, and they just kept going like, hey, this is for kids, and they kept doing that, and then they mixed dinosaurs in there too, and it's just like, where did this weird concoction come from?
Richard Matheson, we talked about him a little bit. I mean, he was the originator of Duel. He wrote it as a story, and he wrote for Twilight Zone. That's how Spielberg knew of his work, was through the Twilight Zone. And he's also a very famous novelist too. I don't know if you've read I Am Legend, but that's a Matheson book, and it's one of my favorite novels of all time. I love his work, his short fiction, and his novels. And he also played a big role in our movie today, Duel, the beginning of Steven Spielberg's career. I don't know how long I will be doing this podcast, but I've said to people from the get-go, I want to get to Jaws. So that's like right now, that's the goal. If I can get to June of 2025, we're talking Jaws. You have to hold on.
No problem. Looking forward
to it. Take a breath. But it has been so much fun to have you on the podcast today, Will, talking Duel. Do you have anything you'd like to promote, or anywhere our listeners can find you online? Now would be the time.
Nope. I'm an intensely private person, and I have nothing to promote.
It's a great answer. I've had it before. But Will and I go back a long ways. It's always a treat to see your face, Will, and chat movies with you. So much fun. And I thank you for being here, Will, and thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.